The Department of Justice is suing John Bolton and his book publisher because they claim that John Bolton signed an NDA, and by publishing this book, he's allegedly publishing classified information. Now, I don't buy that argument almost ever, because anytime the federal government wants to prevent the public from knowing about something, they argue that, oh, it's classified information. I don't buy it. So let me give you the details and also remind you that John Bolton was Donald Trump's national security advisor. He did leave the administration on bad terms. The Trump administration is not a fan of Bolton. Bolton is not a fan of the Trump administration. Bolton is still a terrible person overall. I don't want anyone to forget about that. He is a war hawk. He has done terrible things. He has encouraged the country to engage in wars that we should not have engaged in. And more importantly, in this book, this upcoming book, he is going to share details of the impeachment investigation that he probably should have shared by testifying against Trump. But he refused to do that. He needed the courts to get involved to force him to testify, so he wouldn't look as bad among his Republican colleagues. But nonetheless, let me give you the details of what's happening with this DOJ lawsuit. The lawsuit alleges that Bolton breached his non-disclosure agreement with the government by moving forward with the release despite having not finished the pre-publication review process with the National Security Council. The lawsuit claims that the book, as I mentioned earlier, titled "The Room Where It Happened," contains classified information. Just a small point, a dumb point, but like that is a very strange title for this book, "The Room Where It Happened." But okay. All right.
We're going for vague here, Anna.
Bolton does reveal some pretty interesting details related to the impeachment investigation. Several legacy print publications have already published some excerpts from his book. In it, he says that the impeachment investigation should have been broader, looking into, possible financial crimes committed by Donald Trump. Gee, I wonder who else was making that argument. And Bolton, by the way, also talked about how Trump was trying to get China to help him with his reelection campaign. And he was using trade negotiations as leverage, which is just, it's unsurprising to me. We even saw him during Chopper Talk encouraging China to investigate, at the time, Joe Biden and Elizabeth Warren, who was a front runner at that time during the Democratic primary. So
coincidentally,
John.
Yeah, hard to believe that he would try to push China to help him out electorally. Look, he was in the room where it happened. I will give him that, as he has noted on the cover. And so, look, if he has things to say, then we should certainly consider them. But the issue isn't just that Bolton is a murderous psychopath who wanted to, launch us into wars that would have killed God knows how many people, and has fought his whole life for that. Like, the one driving principle of John Bolton is that there aren't enough people in the U.S. and around the world dying from wars he initiated. It's also that I don't know why we would necessarily believe much that he would have to say. I understand that there are legal implications to demonstrable lies, potentially, maybe. But I would say that at the very least, you need a big grain of salt with any claim that he makes, especially when it is clear that this is a money-making enterprise. As you alluded to, he could have used this information to testify when it mattered during impeachment. He chose not to. He pushed ahead with a book, which he's going to make money off of. And as a sort of side note, I understand people wanting to see what he has to say. Much of it will be available as excerpts in articles. You might be able to find the book in some fashion. I would say no one should pay for this. He should not earn $1 for a combination of his cowardice in not coming forward with this information earlier, let alone all that he's actually done across his career.
I appreciate your giving people some caution in believing things that Bolton has to say. There are things that I think Bolton is alleging that we have evidence of, right? Like we've done so much reporting of Donald Trump's possible financial crimes. And so it's not just about Bolton, but I do like that you're mentioning that because yes, you're absolutely correct. There is a profit motive behind what Bolton's doing. And so make sure that you like really fully investigate all of his claims. But honestly, to that end, Donald Trump and the Republican Party at this point in general lie to the American people on a daily basis about literally everything, right? Where we are in this pandemic, which is costing people their lives. What Democrats allegedly do. I mean, there's a lot to criticize Democrats on, as you guys know from this show, but just like the most outlandish, ridiculous things imaginable. The lies about Black Lives Matter, the lies about Antifa, the lies about everything and anything, about Muslims. Like, it's just nonstop. So John Bolton comes from a culture of liars. And so I wouldn't be surprised that he would lie for profit. But with that said, I do think that there are some perspectives that he provides that only reinforce what we already knew about Donald Trump, right? He is a criminal. So the DOJ lawsuit, by the way, also claims that some, up to several paragraphs in length, the lawsuit alleges that disclosure of that information could be expected to cause serious damage or exceptionally grave damage to the national security of the United States. It's just such a joke.
But I mean, I get, like, we could theoretically keep it to this area, but I mean, Trump just sat twiddling his thumbs while 120,000 people died from coronavirus. I don't think that concern for damage to the national security of America is like the thing that's driving him. Like, imagine on a pie chart of embarrassment, worries about how it might affect the election, concern for national security, what a tiny little sliver that would be in his considerations when it comes to this book.
Absolutely. And by the way, the book is expected to cover the Ukraine saga, as I mentioned, and similar transgressions that existed across a full range or the full range of his foreign policy. And that's according to a review from the publisher. Now, with that said, this is not the only book that Trump is attempting to censor. Trump is considering suing his own niece, Mary Trump, who is the daughter of Donald Trump's brother, who passed away. And apparently Mary Trump has some stories to share about how terrible Donald Trump is. Now, again, we already knew that, but there's some family drama apparently that Trump wants to keep under wraps. According to the Daily Beast, the president's legal team would likely send his niece a cease and desist letter. The unnamed source told the Daily Beast that Mary Trump signed an NDA after her and her brother Fred Trump the third's bitter legal battle against the rest of the family in the early 2000s over the legal will of Fred Trump Sr. So when Fred Trump Sr. died, they apparently got into a fight over his assets. And Mary Trump happens to be the person who leaked part of Donald Trump's tax returns to the New York Times, which discovered that there were all sorts of schemes, all sorts of fraud committed in order to prevent paying taxes on the $413 million that Fred Trump had passed down to Donald Trump.
Yeah. Isn't it, this is to some extent what I said this morning on the Damage Report, but isn't it weird that, like, so Trump has this scheme to evade millions of dollars of taxes, and she knows enough about it that could potentially get him in trouble. So he has her sign an NDA, not just on that matter, but indeed the entirety of their relationship. Like, Trump has an aura amongst his followers of being like an everyday working guy. Yeah, what everyday working class person hasn't had an NDA on their niece to make sure that people don't find out about their tax scheme to save millions of dollars? It's just so, like, imagine if that same story came out, but it was Mary Biden, and Biden had an NDA on his niece from 20 years ago, and now he was doing everything he could to stop her from revealing their relationship. It's just it's so weird to know that. I don't necessarily think that much is going to come of this book. I can't imagine what access she's had for the past 15 years, and if she had it, she would have come out earlier, I would imagine. But, like, imagine if it was about another politician, and it doesn't matter. To his base, what could she possibly reveal that would turn them against him at this point, considering all that we know?
It's like, I think maybe some of the stuff that she reveals in this book is just like positive advertising for Trump among his base specifically. Like, yeah, you're right. Look, the only time I see people wavering on Trump is when he's revealed to be the coward that he really is, right? And also when he actually does hurt people financially. I mean, so many farmers across the country have been devastated by Trump's trade war, and they've never recovered. The number of farmers who committed suicide as a result of that financial devastation, like,
yeah,
there have been Trump supporters who have, suffered grave consequences, and we don't really get to hear from them much because they get drowned out by the pro-Trump people. But this is what Trump is doing when it comes to anything negative being published about him. He tries to censor the books. He tries to intimidate people by pursuing legal action. And I'm sure that this is the exact type of situation that someone like Dave Rubin is going to write about extensively, since it's a free speech issue, right? Very serious free speech issue.
You were doing everything you could to sort of hold it together and hide that you were about to go in that direction, but I knew it from the beginning. Like, imagine if someone had just, as a massive stunt that has apparently flopped, someone had written a book about censorship of books and how it's bad and how we should avoid it. And you'd made your entire brand about caring about the First Amendment, which you seem to have a very loose grasp of what it actually protects and what it doesn't, but you at least say the word a lot. And now there's this test of it. And you're not even a dogmatic Republican. You're like something aside. You can criticize Trump if you want. Imagine if that person was silent now, how embarrassing that would be. Unimaginable. Couldn't happen.
I don't know, John. I mean, what about Trump's ideas? I mean, it's just more ideas. We can't be mad at his ideas.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.